to the Unconstitutional Awakening program.
Liftoff will start in T-minus 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have ignition.
Brought to you by KD Consulting Redesigned.
Ahoy there, mateys. It's time to set sail on another episode of Unconstitutional Awakening. This evening, I've been being poked and pushed to bring a subject that I've been touching on the internet over there on TikTok and stuff, and even on Facebook a little bit before I got banned again, about Hitler apparently ending up in Argentina after World War II. This is a wild conspiracy I've dug into a few different times, and there's a bunch of interesting information out there. So this is going to be, I'm just trying to warn everybody way ahead of time, and I'll try to keep a heads up throughout the thing that this is going to be a bit of a dark conversation, I guess, if you would say, because I mean, there's just some interesting what ifs in this conversation. So, just a heads up, I guess. But I don't think it's going to get too bad. Like there's a lot. We've been having a good pre-show conversation, and there's a lot of good, weird, interesting, coincidental information out there. And you guys know how I feel about that. That's just kind of weird, from everything that ties back into frankist. If you've been in on that conversation, that's why we've got Mr. Michael Hall back with us this evening, and down to German cities inside of South America. And so it's just a bunch of wild, interesting things that seem to tie together. Of course, this evening I've got Bandit. How you doing over there, buddy?
I'm doing excellent, man. Excellent.
Fantastic. And of course, up in the other corner over here, I've got Luis. How are you doing today, sir?
Alive.
I missed you this weekend. We had fun on the first episode of our pirate history dive. I hope you're available this coming weekend, because it'll be fun.
Yes, I need to snatch my friend who is hard to get.
We're getting
these
there.
families of pirates. He's actually the descendant of a pirate. Yeah.
See, we need that kind of stuff over here.
I think his potentially 80 million minimum is the value. Probably it's 100 million now of the stuff he lost. So pirates. Yeah, it's in the south of Puerto Rico. They believe it's South Puerto Rico, but the problem is the waters are really choppy, so it's not a good place to go explore.
Well, maybe one day, who knows? If the poles keep shifting, oceans might be in different directions altogether. So we might find something good.
This is the weirdest thing. It's like there's two things we cannot control: the fucking apophis and the pole shift.
I mean,
well, apophis, we can blow it out of the sky. Maybe. That's the fun part. We'll get fireworks.
But I mean, those are like real world information things. Like, I guess things people actually look over, things that.
Yeah. What is it now? Bandit 75 miles a year.
75 miles a year. The North Pole is shifting towards Siberia. What was it, like 20 years ago?
It was like a few inches.
20 years.
It was like 3 or 4 inches.
I mean, that to me is like, there we are, ladies and gentlemen. There's your
accelerated move. Well, Pakistan is becoming a whole ocean. They're getting an ocean front.
An inland lake. They have more water in their country now than Lake Michigan.
Well, the advantage is everybody now gets lakefront property and an abundance of clean,
Not what you want,
hopefully
man.
clean water.
Hey man,
That's not how you want it.
I know. It's
Not
horrible.
how you
It's
want it,
fucking
man.
horrible.
It's like, oh shit, Lake Michigan just appeared in my front yard. Oh, now I got fresh drinking water and I've got lakefront property. It's not how I wanted it though.
It's what happened before.
But no, I mean that's
Climate.
that's all good
It's
stuff.
climate change.
Climate
And now
change.
they're warning, guys, temperature is going to be cooling off this fall, but don't
Sweet.
worry. Climate change will be back in the summer.
Yes,
I'm not
excited.
kidding you. That's exactly how they're saying it.
Oh, you mean summer's back?
Yeah. Summer's back. The
Well,
temperatures tend to get warmer.
I guess it's one good thing that we can say though is the folks that are out there that are enjoying us over there on Rumble and BitChute, Odyssey, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts and all those other podcast platforms and stuff. They're hearing it over here instead of probably listening to whatever the news is saying about it, because Lord knows that's just ridiculous that they're saying that it's leaving until next summer. Like, one of these days people got to catch on to all that propaganda, and that's why we're trying to be here. We're trying to show you that there's just a ton of bullshit out there, and whether one way or the other is propaganda.
The founder of the Weather Channel saying it should be kind of a red flag that people should pay attention to.
These are things that you can point out that are real world things.
You can find the broadcast where he literally just starts spewing
Oh,
about
yeah.
like how Weather Channel is full of
the
shit.
founder of Weather Channel.
When he calls out, it's like, this climate change nonsense is absolute
Yeah.
bullshit. It's just natural weather phenomenon. Shut the fuck up.
That's right.
Well, and everybody's talking about the Queen right now. While that
The
is
witch?
like,
Blizzard Queen.
I mean, that does have a significant role in a lot of things. But what I'm more concerned about, I don't know if you guys saw this, but the Vatican, they're up to some weird stuff. They started
People have been
shifting.
saying the Pope is dead or the Pope is going to quit or
Listen.
Oh, worse than
No,
that.
he said the money.
They
Worse.
started, yeah,
Put all their
they
money
started
in the
moving
Vatican
all
bank.
the money. Yeah.
wait, what?
Yeah, they
got
took
it.
I have
every-
a theory. I have a
I got
theory
it.
behind that.
I got you topped. Hang on. The
I have a theory
Queen.
behind that.
The Queen has been dead. From a theory I was just told, the Queen was executed last year, and they're just now saying she's dead, and it has to relate to that same thing you guys are talking about. Actually,
What, that she was executed?
I don't know. This is the kind of things that get sent to me. Do you guys
Oh
understand
my
the messages that I
God.
receive?
Was that somebody from Q? Oh, Jesus.
Q
Very
was
likely.
another one that
Guantanamo,
was.
she was sent to Guantanamo Bay, man. She's not really dead. She's just imprisoned.
She's just in Guantanamo Bay. I love it. That's
Yeah,
better.
she's not dead.
If you want to freak people
so-
out, it's like, yo, what?
No,
Okay.
seriously. Getting back to what Michael was saying about the bank, about the Vatican Bank.
What did the Bandit
them-
Bank do?
No, they're requesting that countries like deposit all of their like reserves
Assets.
into the Vatican Bank, like pulling all like, hey, you need
and
to
and
do
a
this.
deadline by September 30th.
September 30th. That's exactly what I read. The reason, my theory behind this is there is this winter is they are about to re-enter the dark ages this winter
Well, yeah, Europe
Be-
is because they're dum-dums.
because of their energy costs and stuff like that. And my theory is that they're expecting some serious runs on the banks because of like shit is gonna like I'm predicting a complete and utter European collapse
Hoping to eliminate the wiggle room
this
for-
winter.
Okay, the
Well,
Vatican
The entire
and closing-
economic system that was built and set up, like it, that also leads back to the frankists.
Oh,
Oh,
I was going to
snap.
change. I wanted to mention one thing about what you guys said. So it says, according to this, it was hoping to eliminate wiggle room and foot drag in the Vatican department by imposing tighter financial controls. Pope Francis has ordered that all investments by all departments must go through the Institute for Works of Religion,
Pope
i.e.,
Frank,
the
what?
Vatican Bank, as of September 1st. So it was a start point. September 1st was the start point. Now, what's the September 30th thing? Is different.
That's the deadline.
But by the 1st, it was supposed to start.
Ooh.
They're just like abruptly, like just
They're
trying
forcing
to
all
accumulate.
finances trying to accumulate 140
It's going to be total
million.
economic collapse.
You're right. And actually, this would be probably a great point.
Italy's going to collapse. Yeah,
well,
they're in debt.
I mean, well, thinking about that, thinking about things collapsing, because if one of them starts collapsing, they're all going to start collapsing. And so I guess while you can, now would totally be a great time.
Poland is going to laugh at everybody else.
To check out our buddy over there, Kirk Elliott, at kirkelliottphd.com/Jim Bob/ and invest in yourself in some silver, man. Because this would be a good time to have some silver, I guess. Because when things do start collapsing, people will definitely trade for silver. Like, I know that's one of those things about trying to make up fiat currency, but silver totally always seems to be something people are willing to trade for, and this guy can totally help you get it. And then you can also hang out over there and check out Peachy Key Creations and get yourself some energy healing and some homemade soaps and some homemade candles, and it's all made with real materials and stuff, and none of that crap you're gonna buy in the stores for sure. That's Peachy Key Creations. You can find it right now on Facebook. You can also check out my buddy over there making survival cans and with camping gear and first aid and plate carriers and ghillie suits over there. That's Ammo Can Survival. He's over there on Instagram. It's a good little dude, man. You guys can check him out, and he's a good friend of the Liberty movement, man. He's helping anybody and everybody, no matter where you are, Luis. And then of course our buddy up there at Brett Pike at Homeschools Connected and ClassicalLearner.com, helping people get educated with some real world information instead of the propaganda that you get fed at school and work and the news and whatever source you get your nonsense from that promotes despair and fear. Like, this is the opposite of it. We're trying to find ways to connect with each other and make sure that we stay connected. So you guys can check out all of those guys and check out our stuff over there at unconstitutionalawakening.com, the website where you can find this wacky crew of freedom pirates doing their thing. We ain't going anywhere anytime soon, so you guys make sure you stay tuned to everything we got planned ahead of time. We got stuff planned out all the way through October already. Me and Bandit got some ideas, so you guys stay tuned for everything that's more to come on Constitutional Awakening, with Luis now being a bigger part of the family and such too. Like, we love you, Luis, and we appreciate everything you do over here with us. That's from the bottom of my heart, and I'm sure the rest of the crew agrees. So but with all that nonsense out of the way, you guys, how many of you have ever heard of that conspiracy that Hitler didn't leave, the way that they claimed he did? Because I mean, for real,
the skull that was found was a woman's skull.
Absolutely. So the way that this goes,
that's how stupid the story goes. It's like they didn't even choose the right sex.
Yeah. All right. So on April 30th, 1945, as the story is claimed to go.
Wait, April 30th, wasn't that his birthday?
Adolf Hitler committed suicide in his underground bunker.
420 is his birthday.
Yeah.
It's 420.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh.
He committed suicide. It's claimed that he committed suicide in his underground bunker. And his body was later discovered and identified by the Soviets for being, before being rushed all the way back to Russia. Or was it though? Is it really possible that the Russians have been lying all this time and history has been purposely rewritten? Like, I know this is wild to think, but there is seriously FBI documents that show that basically the most hated man in history escaped from where he was.
One of the most hated men in history. Not the most, one of the most.
Yeah. And lived out a beautiful life in the foothills of the Andes Mountains. Like, that's a wild thing to imagine. And you're like, okay, Jim Bob, you're completely off your rocker and respectable. Sure, I would definitely say I'm completely off my rocker in this case, but there's really are some interesting things from actual documents that exist that were like declassified by the FBI. Like, I'll just pull up this one right here. This was like early in the thing, but it's reports that Hitler got upon a submarine and was headed to Argentina. And I mean, this is These are supposedly real documents. I will share the link to the it's 4 files. It's like
They're hard to
600,
read.
700 pages all together to be real when you sit down and go through
And
all.
one quick interjection that I just glanced at that document before we started recording.
Yeah.
And it's talking about how there was like a informant or something that lived out in LA.
Yeah.
So there was this guy, and I cannot remember his name to save the life, like to save my life. But he was basically a mutual. At one point, he was like back and forth between Los Angeles and Germany, and he was essentially a mutual with Adolf and Aleister Crowley.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wait, how old was Aleister at the time?
About. Well, this was
Super
before.
young. Was it?
This was like right when Hitler started to like come to rise. So like he wasn't quite, batshit crazy yet. He was just like developing his occultic ensemble.
Was Aleister
Frankist
never
wave.
not batshit crazy?
He was not. He basically wasn't a fan of Crowley, and he banned Crowley's writings and books and stuff in all of Germany.
So,
Well, the FBI was involved with Hitler since 1930.
yes.
I mean, the U.S. government funded what we call today the Nazi Party.
The Nazi Party,
co-funded by the United States
government
in alliance with the United Bank of New York.
Well, in
Big
Germany,
surprise,
through all
though.
of that,
Wait, who was a top executive at the United Bank of New York that we know as the man that was just recently our president at the time of the towers getting pwned?
a Bush.
He was a Bush.
Wasn't it? And
then his son
surprise,
became the head of the
Michael's wearing
CIA. What the hell?
Michael's wearing a NASA shirt when most of our NASA, top researchers came
from that place, from that fun place,
the Nazi Party.
I mean, yeah, you get into things like
They
that,
were
like
definitely a
paperclip
party.
happening for sure.
So, that all of this, is intertwined. Just now, when my eyes opened, it is, everything is plausible. Nothing is totally out of reach right now. 10 years ago, if I would have heard any of this nonsense when I was a statist, I probably would have gone, no, man, America crushed it all. We're America. We're the red, white, and blue, man. Now I'm just like, why? I'm not surprised.
Since around 16, I started hearing about the alternative of his death being that likely it was possible that with the Luftwaffe and the many other officers that extracted a portion of the wealth that was never discovered.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's like, what backed them from getting the capability to establish themselves in a whole fucking other country with a complete different currency system? Gold and art. And if you look at Brazil, I mean, for sure that they have a lot of rich people to steal.
Look what the UK Look what the UK is sitting on as far as stolen artifacts and money.
I mean, for all I care, eliminate the monarchy tomorrow, dissolve it entirely, sell all the assets, and build public housing.
Yeah,
they're not going to give the money back. So at least do that for the people of the UK.
When you first start digging into this thing, one thing that you can easily point out in the beginning of all of it is that South America and Germany had a pretty good relationship throughout World War I and World War II. There was actually coups by the American government to try and overthrow Argentina and everything, like during all of this neutralness against Nazi Germany, because both places refused to even take part in the war until towards the end, like the very end, before they actually chose a side. And then it just kind of ended, so it didn't really even matter. But there were lots of travels with Adolf and what is it, Goebbels or Goebbels or
Goebbels.
Goebbels and Himmler, and even ones that did even make it here during Operation Paperclip, like von Braun and such, that
Don't forget Mengele.
in Mengele, and they were all traveling back and forth into Brazil during the rise of Hitler to power and during Nazi Germany and stuff. Like, this is there is real, like, documented evidence and known down there. Even like when you're down there in that area, there's German towns. Like, I know the guys here will back me up on looking into that, but there's literally German towns in South America, not just in Argentina. They're in Brazil too. Like, this is a real deal thing.
What is it? What I sent you I sent a meme into the group chat that made mention of why so many of the gun manufacturers out of like South America look like old school German gun designs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there's
a lot of clones. There's a lot of European. There's Taurus, and Taurus made a lot of clones.
So
that's another example.
There is down in that area, like pretty common or whatever. Check this out. There is towns, and this is in like South America. You would think this is a town on the side of like at the hills of Germany somewhere.
Bavaria.
The thing about it is it's very beautiful, and you have to think, wow, they brought in a lot of fucking people to be able to do this in a whole nother country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because they don't have the craftsmanship, so they had to teach them what the fuck to do that. Because this was not traditional at all in compared to Brazilian architecture. I mean, Brazilian architecture itself is pretty. Not this. It was not even close to this because there's a lot of wood involved in
that's
this.
Something that's some stuff that I used to have. I used to have pictures of when I was stationed in Germany. That's exactly what the architecture looked like where I was stationed, because it was one of the.
A lot of engineers were with them.
This is what Germany looked like when I was in Germany.
Yeah, well, there's very few areas that look like that anymore because it's there are very few places. Sure, it might have been reconstructed like that, but there are very few places in Germany that have the old buildings still standing. Like where I was completely untouched by bombing in World War II. The only bomb that hit in a farmer's field like 10 miles out of town. That was the only bomb that hit. Like very few areas, and it was absolutely just like that. So it's like, I'm not in South. Am I in South America or am I in Germany right now?
But if you look at it from the perspective of just the insane amount of people, so that must have been over 5,000 plus. Because in order to have that much skill, you have to have these 10, 15, 20 engineers in that group. Like top tier engineers for you to clone every aspect of German architecture and be able to pass that on to a scale that would make sense. You would have to have a lot of people in that space.
It almost makes you think that they were doing continuous trips throughout the war, and this just wasn't a last minute evacuation. Like this was
that could have been the plan
ahead of time.
That could have been logical. In case we lose,
we have to have a fallback plan, and it can't be anywhere in Europe because they are going to hunt me down. They are going to hunt us down.
Is Brazil one of the only countries without extradition? Isn't Brazil one of the only countries without it?
But look at the convenience of running U-boat trips and ships. Look at the convenience of that.
Well, yeah, North Brazil was not that far from Europe, as people might think. They're not.
Well, and then all right, so here's where inside these documents, one of the like key pieces of information, I guess, in the early part of the documents is that the former Swiss director of the United States, OSS, Alan Dulles, he was apparently like the dude that, and I got's a small picture, so I do apologize if you got for you guys watching and stuff. But the Alan Dulles, he like was a big part, and you see him pop up a lot in a lot of things when you're digging throughout different history things, different weird history things with like even MK Ultra and other projects and stuff that happened after the war. This dude pops back up from time to time.
What's his name?
Alan Dulles.
I
I'm
wonder
probably
if he
saying
has
it
any
wrong.
ties to Puharish.
To Harish?
Puharish. He's like the guy that he was heavily involved in the technology behind MK Ultra as well. But he kind of more focused on the like new age spirituality stuff that's been going around.
I got
Like he figured out his technology. He figured out that like the teeth could be used as antenna to send like certain radio waves to where he could like project like people having a false spiritual experience through like basically narrating as if he were Egyptian gods, and where people were like having experiences with Egyptian gods, but it was completely fabricated.
There's a funny story of Lucille Ball, the actress, where she had so much work done in her mouth that she could, at certain times, in certain areas when they're driving, she could pick up the radio in her mouth.
Whoa.
And I think she could open her mouth and it would slightly make a noise. It was just like such weird mouth work. You can build a radio out of like a few pieces of metal. So that idea is completely real and verifiable and proven, and
The Russians
not
built
some weird pseudo science, but like legit, real. Because it can happen. Have you sometimes yourself heard the radio in your head?
Mm-hmm.
I've heard it. And then you play the radio, it's the exact same part of the song that you were thinking in your head before you turned it on. Like it was in sequence to your beat. And that's because you're actually listening to the radio.
And Puharish was also good friends with like, you know, he's seen with all types of prominent people, even the Pope at one point. So it's like, you think about these power hungry religious leaders that is getting a hold of technology that can have you have falsified spiritual experiences. They can tell you whatever the hell they want, and then you'll believe it. You can fabricate the Holy Ghost, and then like, oh yeah, I love the Catholic Church now.
When they go to the hotel room, when they leave the Vatican after meeting the Pope, at the middle of the night, you prep it and you make it a simulation of something, and bada bing, bada boom. The next day, they're your fucking bitch. Super smart. If you planned that shit out ahead, you gave them a religious trippy ass experience that they could never explain with their modern understandings. Even at the time, they had no idea what the fuck that was.
Yeah, because this was back in like the back 30s? In the
40s.
No, it wasn't that long ago. It was like I'd say 50s, 60s. But when he was like prominent or whatever, and he didn't directly write the book Raw Material or the Raw Material, RA material. But that was the book that essentially influenced modern New Age spirituality. And Puharish, it was proven by my buddy Museum of Tarot on TikTok. He proved that Puharish had a direct connection to that book. And that so basically he whoever authored that book, yeah, he was friends with Puharish, and ended up creating a whole new wave of spirituality. Spell that? It's like Puharish.
The Lucille Ball story is even crazier. She heard spies.
Yes.
She heard spies.
There he is, Puharish. And you said Lucille Ball heard spies?
I just sent you the link. Evidently, the controversial part is she heard spies with her tooth fillings. But there's recordings of her talking about it, like joking about it. That she's just in the car and then she heard it.
The Russians built this radio transmitter that didn't emit a signal, and they hid it in a plaque and gave it, and had some Russian kids present it to some State Department officials, and they hid it in their office, and it was in their office for fucking 15 years, I think. 12, 15 years, maybe not that long, but it would only work when from across the street they aimed a radio signal at it, and then it would work, and it would transmit 2 ways. And as soon as that radio frequency was shut off, that device would be untraceable. So it only had like 3 or 4 moving pieces in it. So it was completely untraceable. So this whole thing of like fillings and anything, even a plate in your skull, hearing like radio transmissions perfectly.
Yeah, I didn't ask a friend of mine that just told me that he survived an insane crash and had an actual like titanium plate keeping a portion of his face like. It's crazy what would have been able to do with healing, but sometimes weird side effects like that could happen.
Well, okay, so I guess onward with this thing is, so there was a guy that traveled from Argentina that was of German descent, I guess, and tipped off the FBI in Los Angeles that Hitler and quite a few other people had escaped on a German U-boat, U-530, on the Argentina coast. I'm trying to get the document itself to pull up. It's not the best picture, but this is the page out of the document, which again I'll share the document. But and apparently they have like recorded documents that this U-boat showed up and dropped off quite the amount of Germans. So like this is again, like these are the FBI, like Bandit made mention, has been on Hitler's tail since the 30s at this point, and they're still investigating him after he's dead. Like, why would you investigate someone that you have claim that is dead? You know what I'm saying? Like
they were investigating worldwide spy agencies were investigating this in the mid 50s, worldwide, like Interpol. And so if you knew a guy was dead, why would you continue to investigate, him? That it just like you kind of give yourself away.
I mean, I had a friend who, I don't know if he was lied to, but he was once hanging out and this old lady just started confessing who she was because he knew he was Jewish and Israeli. And he was like, why are you doing this? And she was like, she just wanted to say it because she's rarely ever said it, especially wanted to say it to a Jew, some weird power tripping thing. The only reason he didn't attack her was like, because he's in a public space. But some of those people are extremely disgusting. And it's crazy that they adapted so well into Brazilian culture, into Argentinian.
There was a military surplus store off post where I was stationed in Germany. That was run by a guy in his. So at the time, this was almost 20 years ago when I was in Germany, and he probably was in his late 60s, early 70s, and he was I never really found out like exactly, but he was a German soldier at some point in his life. I mean, powers of deduction kind of point you in a certain direction. But he had a whole bunch of like modern German memorabilia and stuff like that. But legit in the back room was his like Nazi showroom. Like if you took him like stuff to trade, he would never voluntarily like take you back there. But if you took him stuff to trade and you knew what he had, he would take you back there and show you.
I know, I would say non-Nazis with Nazi stuff. I had a history teacher that brought,
Yes.
they were doing a play and Schindler's List, which is not typically a high school play, but they were like, fuck it, let's do Schindler's List. I'm like, cool, brave of you. I got them the fake guns. What was interesting is like, he really did have a Nazi flag. And in a Catholic school and everything, and we're like, oh, all right, well, let's push the curtains of. I'm sure some people are like, is that a fucking Nazi flag? Like a real deal from Germany. I don't know how the hell he got that. He was Spaniard at the time, so he might have gotten it when he was living in Spain.
There's a lot of stuff in circulation, but regardless, there was just so much there, and
they made a lot of random stuff.
Sure. Oh yeah, dude.
So trade in
wear salt and pepper shakers, like just crazy shit. But you know,
everything had the logo. It's weird.
Trade in South America. They got sanctioned by the United States, but during World War II, but the Europe and Germany both continued to trade. Apparently, even during the war with South America and down in Brazil and in Argentina, of course, apparently the Germans more so in Argentina because there was also this.
They had a cocaine addiction too. They had a drug addiction problem.
Yes,
and then that's part of the story. Hitler, when he lost his supply of cocaine, he started doing meth. Yes. It's called, I think, the book about this is called Blitz. If you guys have heard of it, Blitz is like the story of like all the fuckery and drugs that he was taking at the time, and the soldiers. The soldiers were essentially meth.
Blitzkrieg.
Of course, they were efficient in killing machines. They were just meth the fuck up.
Yeah.
And ironically, the word meth in Hebrew is the same, like it translates to death. So like, you know, I don't know how accurate this is. This is just like something I kind of came across, but that's why like drugs in general in Jewish tradition, Orthodoxy at least, but more specifically meth, it's like a curse that like if you do it, like you're done.
That's totally believable.
But it's like a spiritual death. Like it like seals your fate basically.
It is an extremely powerful drug. Even back then, there were some similar drugs. So we have drugs that are similar in its effects to what we call today methamphetamines.
I mean,
we just purified them.
Okay, so I mean, I guess maybe purified it, but I guess I meet a lot of interesting people, and like one of the biggest, and I'm not even trying to go on a weird tangent and like defend anybody, but like or anything that they do. But I've heard of similar stories like throughout like older people to more newer people that like they're purifying it made a more dangerous product than the product that they used to have. Like it's an interesting.
So it actually happens with MDMA. Like they're like this is just one, the receptors are fucked. Like that's why they need like, but it's purer now. Most drugs are way purer now than they were like a few decades ago.
Sure.
LSD, not so much. LSD is still a crapshoot, but most of the other mainstream commercially easily producible drugs, with LSD, it's the issue about the blotter and how much time it can stay on the blotter. And that's why they use things like rat poison to mix it in to stay with the blotting paper.
Oh my, that's
an ingredient of rat poison.
Well, I'm glad I never did any of that.
I mean,
do the things from the ground that grew from the cacao shit. That's what you eat. You wash it, and then you consume it. Well, you can boil it. You can boil them too. Boiling is boiling, and then you lemon tech. That's one interesting method. You ever heard of it? Lemon tech.
Yes, I have.
You cut them up. You cut them up, and then you leave them in the lemon's juice for like a couple of hours, and then you can boil it and make it a tea. And then when you consume it, it's double the speed. It'll hit you way quicker, and it's a bit more intense. It hits you faster, and it's a little more intense. Lemon tech. Man, that's like lemon.
Notes.
Just watch the video, man. I get it all recorded right here. Just watch
Yeah,
the video.
recorded.
So-
Lemon tech.
So during these files, there is interesting people when you're digging through this stuff that they come across, like interesting existing people, other than like German names and stuff that pop up all over the place. But there's one thing that's always stuck out to me in particular was this lady that right here on the left that claims to have had some sort of relation back into this, and that this guy is this guy in this photo right here that's in this photo right here, and that it's supposed to be him. And it's really hard finding a good picture of this. It's very grainy usually. This is supposed to be back towards the end of his life in the late 80s.
Could you send me that? I'll try to brighten the hell up. I'll Photoshop the hell out of it right now.
I know.
Is that supposed to be Ava Braun? Is that her name?
On
Or
the
Eva?
over here,
I think Eva died. Eva died earlier.
he apparently remarried an indigenous Brazilian Argentinian woman or something like this. This lady's name, she comes up again. I'm glad you actually kind of pointed her out, because this is interesting. Like these are one of those things I take as a grain of salt because people are fucking crazy. But here's a couple more pictures, as well as a couple more interesting things that I'll bring up that are pictures that are included with this other lady that's sharing pictures. So that lady, that tall black lady that you've seen, this is supposed to be her again later in the years, holding that picture of her and her husband. This is his suit, apparently, that he tried to hide. And this is a late 70s, like 60s, or somewhere between the 60s and 70s photo of the guy walking around down there that everybody down there knew as Adolf Lepiz. I'll bring this picture back up in a moment, but there's a way that they kind of say it, and I don't want to butcher it as much as I butcher everything else, just so that we
Adolfo Lepiz.
Can you do that again?
Adolfo Lepiz. So was that something similar to how it probably would be pronounced?
It was all right. So I found it. It's Adolf, Leipzig, was how he was referred to when he lived in a small town called Nossa Senhora do Livramento.
Let me send me that one if you can. I'll try to.
I'm about to pull it up right in front of us. This thing. This is apparently where he.
Mato Grosso del Sur.
No, well, not really the picture. This words right here highlighted. Oop, sorry. Where it says Diaz Hitler lived in a small town.
Adolfo Leipzig. It's that's Adolfo, but you would say Adolf Leipzig.
Adolf Leipzig.
So back to those interesting photographs that come along with this lady. Like I kind of want to talk about it. Like I shared this on Facebook, and it's caused quite the stir. My page has been getting a little more attention than it probably should.
You know what's funny though is when you think about this though, there were so many and they always seem to, or have the pictures always seem to have originated from South America though. There were all of those, and I bringing memes up, but there were all those like pictures where they would see somebody that resembled him, and they would jokingly say, "Oh guys, look, I found him," and all of those pictures originated from South America.
I mean, I'm just saying right here and right here, Luis, look at that shape.
I'll say this. He looks like an old European man.
He looks like an old European man.
That's what I would say, because the true weirdness is the nose is different. The nose is slightly wider.
Circle. Mengele was famous for trying plastic surgery.
I would not disbelieve that Adolf Hitler got like what you would modernly call certain plastic surgery, because back then, so plastic surgery exploded in its innovation after World War I and World War II. I remember reading those books in some friends' like medical library. I just was like, horrible. I'm the child that's bored and curious and grabs the medical books and starts looking at World War II images. I was like fascinated. It's like, ooh.
I feel personally attacked.
Wouldn't you not just shave you wouldn't just shave your mustache if you were going to be the most.
My grandfather had that same mustache.
If you were going to be the most hunted man on the planet, wouldn't you try to alter just a little bit? You know,
for sure. I mean, he expanded his nose to be more like a Brazilian.
Exactly. It's totally believable, man. Especially
it's just
with his inner circle. In. Yeah. Totally
it's possible. Believable. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but the guy had to sober up because the guy was borderline dying already. That's the only thing. But Michael mentioned part of his origins. Michael, if you could refresh us on that part about
he had asthma,
his origin.
He was like a severe asthmatic, and like you said, detoxing. When those documents from the informant said when supposedly the man landed near Argentina, that he was severe asthmatic and detoxing off of a shitload of drugs. So he
lost a war and he lost a eye.
Yeah. Yeah. Did he really lose though? Did he though? I mean,
well, Angela Merkel, who was in power for 16 years, would tell you, no, she won.
I mean,
if you
there with us, Mike?
I mean, their power structure transferred to different countries, and their top officials continued living. Did they really lose?
Well, I made mention of course, I made mention of all this to Mike before, and he's been giving us some little sweet details of tying this back into the Frankists, and I would actually like you to touch on that a little bit, since we are talking about Mr. Funny Mustache himself.
Oh, okay. I got actually some great stuff pulled up right now that ties in with that perfectly, and I was literally just studying this stuff last night in this book. So this is it's just weird. I had just found out about this episode today, a couple hours ago.
It's weird how this stuff just ties together, huh?
The universal lines,
right? It's 2 paragraphs, but we can kind of stop and make commentary, because it's not that long, but we can make commentary as
we go. Bring it on, bro. Bring it on.
So this even ties in with the Illuminati. So we're backtracking. This is kind of like what's leading up to Nazi Germany. So for a time frame. So before he even left to go to Argentina, maybe even considered, unless that was his exit plan the whole time. So one of the greatest cover-ups that most people don't know is the influence of the Illuminati on not only the American Federal Reserve banking network, but also for almost all banking networks. Many Illuminati members were part of the Frankfurt schools in Germany, which even today is considered highly respectable and private. The dark reality is that this school has been used as a direct influencer of the Frankist movement. And just to add some commentary, I know that we all are probably on the same page when it comes to the QAnon movement. This is another conversation. There's evidence that the Frankists infiltrated the Q movement and then used it to subvert the other way, to get people diverted and using that as a smokescreen. They're kings of infiltrating, right? But there's a reason why Frankfurt was getting investigated, and during the whole election process, and all that stuff. Like there was rumors of it, but then like everyone's like, oh no, fact check, blah, blah, blah. But Frankfurt, there's obviously something going on in Frankfurt, Germany. And then this is very close to where Hitler's reign was. So basically, yeah, I'll continue. Even the original founding of the Illuminati in Bavaria was a short distance away from the influencers living within the city of Frankfurt. On the outside, the schools of Frankfurt seem to run in conjunction with the philosophy of higher learning, when in reality, it may be that there are darker undertones to this area of Germany. Keep in mind, a person who truly partakes in the Frankist movement does not believe in exposing himself and would rather outright lie about this situation, making it impossible to determine who is a Frankist and who isn't. Surprising nobody, this would be one of the largest issues Germany would face, and would eventually be one reason that led to the horrible Holocaust of the 20th century. Then this paragraph gets into, this is when it actually introduces Hitler. So
can I ask what we're reading from?
Oh yeah, this is my friend's book. It's called Psychosmos. And
Psychosmos?
Yeah, this is the cover of it. Got a ring light glare, but
it's really beautiful.
A synthesis. Cool. Let's see, Psychosmos.
Yeah, it's Psychosmos, a synthesis on human history and spirituality.
I found it right away. Fantastic. I love that. I want to make sure that I can actually share this book for other people to try to find too, because like this is good information.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Oh, this book. This is like a modern Manly P. Hall secret teachings of all ages. Like,
okay,
it's yeah. He did a fantastic job. Is it on digital also? And it's not just it. Yeah, it's also not just him. There's like him and several or multiple friends of his all collaborated together to. Yep.
That's pretty good. I'm gonna see. I'll probably find myself a copy just to check it out. I love stuff like this. This is right up my alley, and I encourage other folks to check it out if they'd like to read some of this fantastic information that Michael's sharing.
And he even mentions Freemasonry, but he does it completely unbiased and fact based. And he's not a Mason himself at all. And but he touches base on like literally the paragraph right before talks about how the Freemasons and the Illuminati had like opposed each other, and like as far as American Freemasons, there was a lot of weird stuff that was going on being infiltrated by the Illuminati and like the European lodges, and like more specifically Germany, and that's where you had a lot of this, or France more specifically. They were always doing weird shit.
There was a book I popped up a minute ago that I'll also make sure that I'll share. That's a good historical book about the Bavarian Illuminati. Like it's one of those things that it rose up and they claim that it disbanded and vanished, but much like the Frankists, the people that were in that realistic group of secret societies just kind of infiltrated into other groups to continue.
Well, yeah, because Jacob Frank was a co-creator to the Illuminati.
Yes.
But
when there's this really neat map from a book that I found when I was doing a lot of this researching and such about the Frankists that has, I think it's got 9 different groups that tie back to what would be considered the Illuminati back then. It was like the Frankists and Jesuits and a couple other groups. Like they infiltrated different religions and political powers throughout not only the Mediterranean area and a lot of the Middle East, but large parts of Spain, America, and Europe, as well as Russia.
Mm-hmm. And Jesuits were even at one point selling fake Masonic degrees to what we, like me being a Freemason, what we call those is like title chasers. They're clandestine or fake. And so they just wanted to basically like purchase so they were selling pieces of paper like indulgences to people, saying that they were these like outlandish numbered degree, like I'm a 360th degree, and then that's where you get that rumor from that there's 360 degrees actually, and it's like, no, that's actually from the Jesuits who was selling fake degrees, and they were doing it in order to fund the Roman Catholic Church.
No,
And
I'm a fan of your content on TikTok. Like, just a side note, because you're always out there bringing facts and debunking a lot of people. They're like, the Masons did it, like, and it's when you start digging, you start seeing a conversation me and you've had before, how the Catholic Church and a few other high prominent powers have always made sure they put the blame on the Masons instead of groups like the frankists and such like that.
Well, the frankists has virtually been buried, and on purpose. It's not on accident.
Yeah.
So that's
absolutely.
why not many people know about them. But the fact that they can be found or traced into just about every single like crazy world event, even Hitler. I mean, so, yeah. Okay. So, yeah, let me do the second paragraph because it gets really interesting here. So, okay. So another fact that many people do not know about the Illuminati is how they were tied to Adolf Hitler. Where would Hitler possibly have gotten the funds for instrumenting the Holocaust? The Vatican is one theory, but they were also tied to the Illuminati and Freemasons at that time. And by Freemasons, this is the Freemasons in the East, like European countries and stuff. So this is when George Washington wrote his letter to Hamilton, I believe his name was. It's the letter's archived, but he confirmed that Illuminati hadn't infiltrated into American Freemasonry, and that was the beef. Is that all the founding fathers saw the oncoming corruption going on in Europe and the European countries, and that's why they fled to develop America and what was already colonized, and established lodges and everything and the ideas. And then when they caught wind that they were trying to basically, like, this was in the beginning stages of the Revolutionary War, that's when they implemented and sealed our Constitution in order to make sure that none of that corruption made its way over here. And that's why they've been infiltrating ever since.
So, I mean, this was called the Great Experiment, right? So,
essentially, that's the Great Experiment does get deeper, and that's actually a really, really cool story. Like, it basically gets into where the experiment was like, the founding fathers were ultimately Christians and deists, and then more especially the Freemason ones, but like they're all Age of Enlightenment people. And so basically the experiment was said to be like a Baconian, like modern Atlantis. It was the plan for America to create a new Atlantis. So they're setting the foundation for the future of a new Atlantis, in a nutshell. But I'll let you go down that rabbit hole, because that's a fun one to look into, especially Francis Bacon. Francis Bacon is that's a really fun rabbit hole.
Oh, you mean how he had this really familiar pen name? I think it's William Shakespeare.
Well, Sir Francis Bacon. I'm not mistaken with the artist Francis Bacon, because there's also the recent artist Francis Bacon.
Well, oh no, yeah. This is Sir Francis Bacon, who was actually Shakespeare, who also happened to translate the King James Bible, more than likely, as well as King James himself was also a speculative Mason before Freemasonry was established.
All of this, yes, like,
and yeah, one of the many reasons why I enjoy being a Freemason, finding out these little. I mean, I knew about those things before joining, but then like studying them more in depth and having an understanding, whatever, like I can kind of like, I don't need, I'm a historian and that's just a conspiracy theory. Like, no, whatever.
Right. No, that's That's one of my favorite, like, just always comeback things. Like, it's just like, oh, that's what you get your education off YouTube. No, man, books too. Like, there's all kinds of weird historical connections across books that are scattered in different places that you don't, until you actually start finding these documents and like looking at these declassified things and stuff like that, you don't actually come across all these puzzle pieces. Like, they're dropped in little places. You know, you made a really interesting comment I would really like to bring up, that about the beginning of like this whole conversation about Adolf Hitler being related back into these frankists as well. And I think that's where you were getting, and I think I would like to get to that.
Yeah, it's going to segue into that. So basically, okay, so was also tied to the Illuminati and European Freemasons at that time, which institutes that these societies influenced the world wars dramatically. The money must have come from somewhere, and that someone was occultist groups. Indeed, the truth is that documentations today proves that Hitler had a substantial amount of funding from entities tied to the Illuminati. This includes wealthy people from Switzerland, Germany, Frankfurt too, England, and America. Specifically, it appears Hitler drew upon the power of the Federal Reserve System tied to the banks in England to amass his wealth and power quickly. These elite families were hell-bent on imposing their spiritual dogma upon the people, especially the Jewish faith, as frankism. And it's not an actual Jewish faith, just to clarify. This is something completely rejected by the Jewish community. The guy that wrote all the authors of this, they're actually Jewish. So like they've got that Jewish lens as well. So this isn't coming from like an anti-Semitic lens.
Well, I mean, that was something when I was doing, you know, again, if you follow me on TikTok and you're listening, and you caught my little Frankist explanation. When you really start digging into the Frankists, you see that they actually go back to the Spanish Marranos that were being chased down for being Jewish inside of a Christian society, and they hid their Jewishism on the inside and practiced Christianity on the outside. And a lot of those people fled to the area that's like now Turkey and stuff. It was during the Ottoman Empire or whatever, and that's why they talked in Ladino. Like the Frankists and the Sabbatians and stuff like that, they talked in Ladino a lot, which is it has Spanish mixed into their Jewish Hebrew dialect and stuff like that. And that was, you know, their studies had roots in Jewish Kabbalism, which is like Messiahism and stuff like that. You know, like there's a whole era, like a whole.
Well, it's like a certain sect.
Years.
Yeah, it's a certain sect of interpretation that took over, because once you get into Kabbalah, you like what comes along with Kabbalah. The oral tradition of Kabbalah has been around longer than it's been called Kabbalah,
Correct.
But then it all is derived from the Zohar, and then there is commentary text that comes in the latter centuries, and there was Rabbi Lariah, and which created Lorianic, Lorianic Kabbalah, which is strictly what the Frankists went off of, but they would
there was something
they took their own interpretation of that interpretation. Yeah. So they thought that Lorianic Kabbalah was their interpretation, which was the law of inversion, but they misinterpreted an interpretation. It gets super confusing.
I guess to break it down kind of simply, the hidden aspects of it was they were hiding these parts of a religion that at the time they were kind of frowned upon in the general groups. Like they weren't because they were using them improperly, and the inversion thing, like along with the secretive thing, like it was a big thing inside of the Frankist movement, and even this Moranos and the others that did this thing in this time frame, that they never outwardly admitted, period, to who they were or the things that they truly did and believed and stuff like that, in fear of persecution. You know, a lot of this stuff is during not only the Ottoman Empire, but is also pre and during, like, a lot of people coming to the Americas, some by choice, some by being prisoners and stuff like that. Like, I really like all of this stuff because it's wild, because you even start running back into that Comte de Saint Germain fellow. Like, he pops up all over the place. He even popped up the other night on a discussion about Mount Shasta. Like, it's
The I Am Society.
dude, I had a fella on here that's Mr. Lowell. He is awesome because he has this fantastic story with pictures of weird artifacts from going inside Mount Shasta. Like,
I got to invite to Mount Shasta.
There's always some, you know, and that's where, but I don't think the cabal thing isn't, like, I don't think that's an evil thing. Like, everybody thinks that, oh, they're like, oh,
no, it's a tool. It's
tool.
just like it's very much like a Bible. It's actually, it's commentary of Torah. It's a mystical commentary of Torah.
Yes.
And it's just a tool, and it can be used or abused.
There's many different
any
pictures
religious
of it.
text as either good or evil.
There's many different pictures of it, and
I
you
mean,
can see it in different ways, but here's just the first one that pops up.
I
mean, it's this.
Yeah, that's a great representation.
This is what they, and you see this in
a
so
nutshell,
many different religions.
And that's basically the Jewish mystic tree of life. So anytime you read the tree of life or any of the circles that are in there, Kether at the top, Hesed, or Hokmah, Bina, Hesed, Gevurah, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Tiferet in the middle. They're all Hebrew words for, like, Kether's crown, and then, like, they all have different meanings. So, like, they're kind of like a way for kind of decoding Torah.
And then
finding hidden images, and that's how we, even to this day, how anybody knows anything past, like, Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael, like the angel names, because a lot of the angel names came from Kabbalists that brought the names out of the Yod He Vav He that everyone calls Yahweh.
Nice. This is good. I think this is fantastic information.
And this is what the Frankists did. They rejected Torah, which is horrible in Orthodox Judaism. Like, that's why they ultimately got rejected. So they rejected Torah, they rejected the Talmud, and only accepted Lorianic Kabbalah through the Zohar, and then interpreted it themselves, and then deliberately went against Torah, which is highly against Jewish orthodoxy. And that's why everyone thinks, like, that's how they were able to successfully create anti-Semitism, which led into our boy Hitler. Not our boy, but you know what I mean.
Yes, no, he's not.
So, where'd it go? Okay, such as frankism, is tied to an extremist sector of Kabbalistic theology centered around the mission of becoming all-powerful. Eventually, these groups would become so influential that they would begin silently removing anyone who opposed their ideology. These are key facts to how societies like the Illuminati have used the media and governments against their own people to devise narratives, agendas, and manipulative psychological operations to destroy the will of the people and instill their own dramatic overtures. So, where this segues into them being involved with is all of Hitler's right-hand men, including Himmler, and then another guy who I believe his last name actually happened to be Frank, ironically. Basically, it was his inner circle that influenced him as he was coming up into power they saw him as an opportunity to where they used him and then was his tackling fuel to go after the Orthodox Jews because they wanted to take out the Orthodox Jews because they're Frankist and they think that the Orthodox Jews are doing unrighteous by being good people. They think that by their understanding, like following Torah is blasphemy. Exactly. So they needed somebody where they basically like maybe even already knew Hitler's background because they were Frankist and then knew they were all having orgies together. And then that's when one of his right-hand men was like, you are the product of Jewish satanic orgies, but they would say Jewish. And so he lost his shit and was like, we've got to get rid of all of these people. And then that's why he went after the innocents.
So there is a thing about, and when you get into the Frankists, that one of their regular ceremonies that they practiced was exactly that, like giant orgies and such. And rumor is that even like Adolf himself was a product of that. Like that's why they kept bringing that up, because these people were connected back to so many different ones. And that's an interesting thing. Like this would tie into like him running off and hiding too, and in kind of a very untouched area. Because when you really think about it, South America is, me and Bandit have spoke on this before, South America is pretty wild still, because there's a lot of jungle and untouched everything, which I think that's pretty awesome, but that's a whole different subject on its own. So
well, it even brings an interesting take, and you'd have to watch the video that I just posted to have a better understanding. Is, you know how the word like neo-fascist, neo-Nazi is being tossed around and almost diluting the term these days. Again, I'm nonpartisan. I'm completely like, just, I don't like, it's not my thing, right? So I'd say this is nonpartisan as I can. Is that from my understanding now is that they're using the law of inversion by projecting those words onto the opposing aisle in order to smokescreen their way of through communism, because Karl Marx was also a Frankist. These people through Tikkun Olam, that saying that it sounds like it's like, oh, world peace and everybody working together. It was adopted by the social justice movement. Therefore, they're saying they're projecting their inversion onto someone else, so everyone can be distracted towards the other side of the aisle. Even though the other side of the aisle has its own issues in general, they're exaggerating on these features. So that it's the law of inversion to a T. So
out to be fascists.
Exactly. Like oh, you're a white supremacist, you're a fascist, you're a neo-Nazi, and blah blah blah. And it's like,
and those of us
anyone that can really use their brain,
yeah,
like
exactly,
we can decipher
like
who actually is or isn't.
We can see through their smoke screen.
Yeah,
and it's mind-numbing today to witness the amount of people that are just so taken in by this and that are so easily duped by this.
Oh yeah.
We can look back at this and go, where have we seen this in history? Where have we seen this take place? We are witnessing a new propaganda machine. Like I just said, were the Nazis really defeated in World War II when we are witnessing a playbook style takeover of our very own country right now? I mean, seriously,
while projecting it onto the opposing aisle.
Yep, so, making you're vilifying a certain group of people, and getting the people to divide and conquer.
I mean, could we show that picture of that so-called puppet thingy that the people voted for? Did we show that picture with the nice background?
Oh yeah, we can do that here because we're not on
it's a
any
good
social
call
media
out.
platforms.
It's a good call out to this
We're not on
conversation
any
because
social
it
media
reflected
platforms.
these tones.
Hey Jimmy, do you need me to send one of those? Because I've got every single one of the
there's so many variants.
versions. I've got all the versions. I
can-
have hunted them down.
It's a beautiful
Do you need me to
carousel
send
that
you one?
The internet will not receive again. I think.
I want to, but while y'all are hitting me with that email,
hold on. Let me hit you with that in the group chat. I'll get you one of those pictures.
So that's one thing about history, that they will work to delete that image as many times as they can. Remember Putin?
Same thing.
The internet is forever, Luis. The internet is forever.
The internet is forever, but they will constantly delete copies of that. Same as the Hunter B computers. And all the content related to that. They try to delete,
and
delete,
it's
delete,
the
delete.
Same exact thing that they did with Jake, or attempted with Jacob Frank. It like was virtually unheard of, and like I hadn't heard about it at all until literally this year, and that's why I'm so like fixated on it.
I mean, the same thing with was jet fuel cannot melt steel beams. People don't comprehend that.
This is supposedly a photo from inside the hotel that. Or not hotel, the apartment that Adolf Lepiz died in, that little border town of Argentina. And
I was going to say as a joke, that looks like a very shitty apartment in Germany because of the furniture.
So
and now
yeah,
that you said Brazil, it's like a very shitty
apartment. Hey Jimmy, I
just
sent
like
you that in the group chat.
So
a nice comparison
I'm work on
photo.
getting it. Oh my lord!
And I mentioned that puppet because, you know, it's really interesting. We're living in a time where they're using all this disgusting rhetoric where one side of the country didn't hear anything and the other side just said, wait, did they just call all of us like the evil people?
Yeah.
Did they just call 80 to 100 million people, you're the bad guys? That's what everybody else heard. And I asked some people, what did they hear? And I asked them, did you actually listen to the whole thing?
No.
Did you listen to the backpedaling the next day?
Oh yeah, the next day. Like, no, I didn't say any of that.
That
was himself.
Control.
He was remember when he was in the tiny podium, you know, in the fake office?
When he says something like that, you've got to be honest with yourself and go, did he really remember doing that? It's the backpedaling.
He was high. He was high as a kite.
He was higher than a kite, man. Again, with
he was
meth,
through the stratosphere. Probably. The stratosphere.
He probably does not remember. Honest to God, the cabbage does not remember making a speech like that. It's his inner circle that
he's still
damage control.
And they were screaming. By the way, did you hear the protest and the very loud sirens in the background? Yeah, that's a real picture of Brandon.
And CNN tried to soften
Did you say
the
Darth
red.
Brandon?
Soften the red and make it lavender-ish.
Oh yeah, so CNN did the transition video. I mean,
that was Brian Stetler's
on
the way out.
So if I guess if this dude found out that he was a part of this group that was doing all this inversion stuff, then this is hypotheticals. If he was to find out that he was a part of all this inversion stuff and didn't know that he was doing it as an inversion thing, you know what I'm saying? Like he learned there was ulterior motives to his influences. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Do you think?
These guys are master manipulators.
So do you think? Do you think?
And they can do it on a global scale.
And so, do you think if a pissed off little art major was upset that he got duped by people he trusted, that he would go into full blown "I've just got to get rid of all of them" mode? Like,
oh yeah, that's one of the things that I actually shared at the end of the video was a screenshot. Actually, you can pull it up on the thing if you go to Google.
I can pull. The
type in.
And for those of you out there saying we don't touch on the uncomfortable truths, think again.
Oh, we go there.
So
we go there.
what do you? What do I? What
Is
do I
this
need
an
to search?
uncomfortable one? I mean, many people are now more open than ever to it. I mean, it is a touchy subject because it's. But we're not saying anything about like
This
we're
doesn't
not
get talked about, bro.
We're not talking about that. We're not dispelling any like falsities about the Holocaust.
We're not saying stupid things
we're
like the
talking about
Holocaust
the
didn't
H
happen.
dude. We're talking about the H guy,
Which for some reason has been
Mustache
censored.
Man.
Mustache man.
Yeah.
But the thing about Mustache Man is that he's been censored because people don't want people to actually know what happened anymore.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's the
Because if you do, you end up coming
realizing,
across
wait,
so
my
right,
leaders
where
are
we're at right now.
acting like him. My leader's
So-
acting like that fellow.
So there's totally a list of Go ahead and give me that search thing that you wanted to say. And I got
type
something
in on Google, say Hitler, Frankist, Illuminati, and it should be the Henry Macau link. It should be the very first link.
the Henry Macau link. It's not gonna be the first one I'm on. Henry Macau.
Yeah,
Found it.
with a
How
K.
about that?
Okay. So
Ooh.
we can read through some of that if you want, but the main thing that I want to focus on is if you scroll down to the bottom-ish where the comments started, the very first comment, Gabriel.
It's not letting me go down that far.
Oh,
It
that's weird.
stops. Interesting.
That's weird. Mine keeps on going.
I believe
Wait, it's the
you.
same page?
It may be.
Look at the page header.
HenryMacau.com.
Yeah, that's the site.
This site
So-
looks like it was made in 2003. And it's
Probably
probably
was.
since then. Oh my
See,
God.
see if you can see where comments would be.
All right, I'm gonna look for it for a second.
And if not, I got it pulled up right here. I can just read it out loud. Because there's someone named
yeah.
Gabriel that basically
Go ahead.
completely spelled it out. If you read the whole thing, the whole article, and then read this comment, Gabriel said on March 27th, 2021, so this is a recent comment at least, there is no doubt that the Sabbatean Frankists organized the whole Holocaust deal. It's a no-brainer. We regular, everyday Jews are the ultimate scapegoats in the history of humanity. This is due to the dealings of the Jewish leadership and Jewish elites in general all through history, making everybody hate us due to their deeds. If people were not so dumbed down and brainwashed these days, they would come and lynch us all like it happened very often for millennia. So people, please keep in mind, most of us are normal people like you. What is happening right now in Israel is proof of how much the Sabbatean Frankists hate most of Jews. The fascism going on down there has no bounds. The unvaccinated are being ostracized. They are starting to deny entrance to malls and other businesses. And the beach, there are chairs, sections, and unvaccinated people. Talk about Nazi discrimination. Think about this before lynching us all.
Wild. Digging around in all this Frankist stuff, people, you'd be surprised at how much there is on top of these orgies and stuff like that. There's like incest and experimental type stuff, like we brought
Children.
Well, not just children, but the twin thing, trying to intentionally create incest, not only incest groups, but like intentionally create twins. There was a German dude, we were talking about this before, that was kind of obsessed with doing that and was pretty successful in
Engla.
Yeah. And it's there's so many like weird tie-ins back into this. Like this is when you really start digging into the history of all this, you start finding things about how many of the higher ups in the Nazi party, like a lot of the names that you can look up, have these same Jewish roots that tie back to not really regular Jewish people, but these Frankists that we keep seeing pop up in different places.
This was in a height of occultism. Sorry to interject, but there's one key detail that I forgot to mention as well. if you look at the trail that they're going on and you compare it to Christopher Columbus and his trail that he was going on, traveling to and fro, up and down, and the Templars in general, because Columbus was absolutely a Templar. I mean, the ships, like all of Columbus's ships that he was on, had a giant red cross on it, like clear indication of being Templars.
Yeah.
And the Templars are the ones who allegedly found the Zohar. And I say allegedly loosely. I firmly believe this. Like, there's a record of it. I got ample amount of evidence for it. But so they're on this trail, and the whole rumor of the Templars was that they discovered the Holy Grail. That is what the Frankists were after, was the Holy Grail. But it's not a physical Holy Grail like they think. They're also looking for the treasure. They're looking for this. They're looking for that. But they want that Holy Grail. And the Holy Grail is not going to be found because it's a spiritual Holy Grail. And they found it and discovered it within the Zohar, which this red multi-volume book set up here at the top shelf, that's all Zohar.
So it's just
so then you got Argentina, you got Hitler fleeing, going into South America and like all these other places. That's like and the Illuminati, who was combating American Freemasonry because they were jealous. Basically, they were like, well, they're being successful. We want that too.
When you really start looking, there's numbers in there, and they say that on the upside of not only like people that were part of the military, but also German, I guess, war immigrants and stuff were fleeing to South America in general. That's why there's such a large German population and German speaking areas and blue-eyed, blonde-haired Brazilian people that look like they don't belong all over South America, because we're talking on the ups of like these. If we go by their numbers and you start putting the numbers that you find in different places together, we're talking on the ups of over 10 to 20,000 just German people. Boom, we're in South America. So of course there's all this building and kind of assimilation to these areas because they're grouping up together and touching with whatever they can out there in the area. Maybe promises of Nazi gold if they help them build this stuff that's out there,
or
this woodwork and stuff like
or
that.
Aztec and Mayan gold.
Even more so, like there's so much that they could have been, because they were traveling there for years. They were traveling there since like the 20s and prior. That there was people, German relations in Argentina,
and the Templars were doing that back in the Renaissance.
Yes,
they spent as much money on creating a nuclear bomb as they did studying the occult globally, which is incredible to even think about. Like,
and apparently they spent this much money on studying dead Hitler too, though. Supposedly dead Hitler. Because I mean, this is many years of documents. Like I said, when you guys open this document up, this original document that I'm going to have linked with this episode, you guys are going to be like, I'm not reading all this. What the fuck? Because
I'm totally going to read it.
Because it's multiple document files, like with many pages in it. And I've thumbed through it off and on throughout the years and found the hot button stuff. And there's a lot of redacted stuff. Like there's a lot of pages that are just black lines, but that, I guess that makes it all the more alluring, because there's so many things that point to it being a very high possibility or a hell of a coincidence, or one of his many body doubles even, that ended up down in Argentina. Like you made mention, Luis, early on, and I think even before the show started, that the skull that was tested that was claimed to be him was a female skull.
It's from the Russian museum.
Yeah.
Yes, the corpse that was found that was supposedly Adolf Hitler. And I remember the first time this went fully mainstream, I think was in 2012, when they were confirming that it was a female skull. But I believe it was just recently that people were finally accepting, Hitler probably didn't die at that bunker.
Yeah, there was even on like BBC and CBS and stuff like that. It's a DNA test. I'll pull up just the first one because there's a bunch of different things. But
Yeah, no, it's confirmed. It's not. This is not the part about the.
this
it's
isn't
not
a conspiracy.
no, it's not a theory. It's a
Yeah.
conspiracy. It's not a
Yeah.
theory.
Oh, it's a conspiracy. It's not a theory. But it is. It's out there that it's definitely a woman
in
woman's
their
skull
40s.
under the age of 40 and not Hitler. So like that in itself, the fact that they're openly mainstream media admitting that begs to add to this question of all of this interesting German people not only ending up here, because people talk a lot about Operation Paperclip. Think about that. Like Operation Paperclip brought over tons of Nazi scientists and German scientists, Japanese scientists from Unit 731 and stuff like that. So did they also make a deal to hide other people down here?
I wanted to mention simply the Bush's grandfather, Bush Jr.'s grandfather, was one of the 7 directors of a bank that also funded the Nazi Party. So then his son became the head of the CIA, then the president of the United States, then his grandson became the president of the United States, and then was present for the orchestration of one of the biggest theater events in the history of the world.
Yep.
And a quick flex. I actually got to hold in my hands, and I actually made a video of it and posted it on TikTok. Speaking of George Bush, I got to hold an authentic burial rite pamphlet of the Skull and Bone Society.
Oh yeah, he was definitely a member that was skirting school as Condoleezza Rice was keeping him in school. She was his tutor. So she was the brilliant person trying to keep him in, because she was super smart and got there.
And she knew he was a dummy.
Yeah, she knew he was a dumbass. And then somebody, probably the Bushes, hired her.
Are we forgetting that Jeb Bush exists?
Please.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Jeb. Whoa!
Are we forgetting that GW has 2 daughters?
Are we forgetting GW helped kill JFK?
That gene pool is still here.
This is the first time in 54 years.
The Bushes have weird history.
That the Bushes, the Cheneys, the Clintons, and who else? There was 4 families, and then Rumsfelds don't have a family member in government. The first time those families in 51 or 57 years have not had a family member in government, because Cheney was going to be elected, but she lost.
Yeah. And
I also figured out all the mysteries of the Bohemian Grove.
Ooh.
That's a whole episode on itself.
It can actually be summed up pretty quick. It's actually pretty fucking boring. Like,
of course, the drinking club.
It literally, like all it is. I read the transcript from Alex Jones's infiltration, and from having a Kabbalistic understanding, reading it in that context makes me understand it a lot better. The whole thing, cremation of care, what they're doing is that, like, Alex Jones just like naturally alluded it to, that thing was the size of a baby. And so it's like they're sacrificing a kid to Moloch. And it's like, no, it has nothing to do with Moloch. It's the owl of Minerva, which is the owl for wisdom. And so it's Hokmah. And so the owl being wisdom is Hokmah. And what they're doing, it's divine feminine, the cremation of care. It's a way for them, a giant ceremony for them. The thing is symbolic of themselves sacrificing to leaving the cares of the world on the outside, and them to have just like a drunk, naked frolic around the woods weekend, to just like not have any business deals, not have any like whatever. It's just a quick vacation for them to kind of let loose.
If they are going to do some seriously fucked up crazy shit, the powers that be, I like to call them, whoever they are, with like the nation's most powerful politics or world leaders, do you really think they're going to do it in a fucking park, in a national forest in California?
No, I mean what it is, it's Bilderberg Group is actually more serious and real, and it's a collective that's known. It's like 100 and something people, the most powerful people on the face of the earth, controlling most of the business on the planet, meeting together and having a conference and discussing the future of the world. That's legitimately an event that happens every year.
Yeah, and they're not even the real powers that be.
They're part of it.
It goes. If you go,
You can go deeper, sure, but what we know for sure is they are extremely influential.
There's always one boss at the top of the.
There's always.
Oh, there are
one
different
person.
bosses.
No, if you go high enough, you always come to one person.
But that one person, let's say that one person really, really, really does exist, right?
It's not a person. It's not a person.
Yeah.
It's impossible to be a person.
It's a robot.
It's a robot.
It's Saint Germain.
Son of, I'm telling you, I'm on you with that, bro.
Everybody always likes.
Saint Germain's on the good team.
Like if you
a
said
40-something
Bohemian
man
Grove,
runs the
Bohemian
world.
Grove, or these places, these deep underground military bases, or Bohemian Grove, or whatever, they're not going to if it's on paper or if it's known to the public, they're not going to conduct shady shit there. You know what I mean? They're going to conduct it somewhere that nobody knows.
Well, sometimes they do it in plain sight. There's sometimes really strange events that they do in plain sight.
That's what I'm saying. If you got to watch that, you got to watch the TikTok that I posted, because like the extended clips of the politicians that's doing this Tikkun Olam thing. Tikkun Olam basically means repairing the world, which is the actual, like, when you lift the veil of New World Order, it's Tikkun Olam, repairing the world. So that is the actual New World Order, which is repairing the world.
Could you call that revelations to an extent?
I'm going to bring it up. Are you ready? I'm going to bring your video up. Are you ready?
Okay, yeah. Prepare yourself, because it is 6 minutes long.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, it is. Are you trying to explain it? Well,
I did that on purpose.
You did that on purpose.
Yes, because numbers is everything in Kabbalah.
Sure.
Look at you. All right. And
this is just clickbait. Beyonce is like a small fry in this.
Concept of Tikkun Olam that has enriched and guided my life.
And really, at the heart of it all, is the
that whole room
concept
clapping
of
is frankist,
which says that repairing the world is the responsibility of each and every one of us.
So you should love one another. Tzedakah. Okay. Tikkun Olam. What's the second rule? Lock arms together. God made the world but did not complete it. Tikkun Olam means repair the universe. So make the best universe you can. That's the whole law. Who says?
We must go forward with Tikkun Olam. We must work together to heal this world.
The words Tikkun Olam, to improve the world.
Used like Tikkun Olam, which means repairing the world.
Let us find the courage to act. Tikkun Olam, as the Jewish tradition teaches, let us repair the world.
Been committed to the spirit of Tikkun Olam.
There has been darkness, and there is so much work to be done in the world to bring light. And it is a celebration of always Tikkun Olam.
Tikkun Olam.
Here, pause for 1 second.
That we can draw upon what's best.
So just to give a quick commentary,
bro,
these frankists believe they are the apex of God's children, that they're the only ones that holds God's true doctrine, and all of the Gentiles or the goys are what they call the husk of the scenario, or the klipa, which is basically the demons. So they think that when Messiah comes back, that they're going to be kings with Messiah, and everyone is going to be slaves to them, because they think it's perfectly justifiable to own people based on their interpretation. And so pretty much what they're getting at is that because of the goys is why, like, God's light is not shining in the world. So they have to basically block out the light to get, like, and manipulate everyone to do, like, what's good is bad and what's bad is good. And then so the whole world has been influenced by this Frankist ideology. But the people like the politicians who are considered goy, but is going to work for them, they're basically giving them some sort of like dispensation of like, look, if you help us with this, you're doing something righteous for God's people, and you will be grafted in type of scenario. So these people, like all the politicians that's helping the Frankists, are essentially trying to just like, they think that it's perfectly acceptable and okay for what they're doing. That's where you get like border children stuff, which that's going to kind of go over this in just a little bit too. That they're funneling this to Frankists who think that this is like okay, like the Epsteins, but the above the Epsteins and all that stuff.
Invest in ourselves to meet the challenges that will come, to win the battles for peace in the wake of so much war, and to do the work of repairing this world. That's your job. That's my job. That's the task of all of us. May God bless you. May God bless Israel. May God bless the United States of America. Toda Rabah.
Visited the Century Pines Jewish Center in Pembroke Pines this afternoon. Several Broward County leaders were among those in attendance. Later at the podium, Clinton spoke about the importance of this election.
Okay. Bill Clinton and a yarmulke.
שמעתם מסביבי? שמעתם על תיקון עולם? לא, 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 לא. אוקיי. אתם יודעים מה זה תיקון עולם? מישהו כן יודע? תיקון עולם. Oh, you're a tourist. Never mind. אתה יודע מה זה תיקון עולם? לא, אתה לא. אוקיי. האם את יודעת מה זה תיקון עולם?
תיקון עולם, האמת שלא.
לא?
אין לי מושג.
None of them have heard of it. This is in Israel.
So the book was born of that concern, and it's about an idea called tikkun olam, a phrase that I think a lot of your listeners may be familiar with. It literally means repair the world, or more poetically, heal the world, hence the title of the book, To Heal the World. And tikkun olam, as your listeners will know, is a Hebrew phrase from the Talmud, from the Kabbalah, from Aleinu, the Jewish prayer, and it's been totally lifted out of context by essentially radical Jewish liberals in the United States to mean social justice. It never meant that before. There isn't really any basis for that interpretation of the idea.
Donald Trump is a white supremacist. The white supremacists know it.
Proud boys, stand back and stand by.
Donald Trump.
The name of that channel, sorry, the caption got in the way, but the name of that channel is Tikkun Olam something.
I've seen that Tikkun Olam films.
Yep, and only like 23 subscribers.
Interesting.
Trump is a fascist. The fascists know it.
Whatever it is, whatever the liberal viewpoint, and in some cases radical viewpoint on that issue, that is social justice. And this idea of Tikkun Olam, or what you might call Jewish social justice, has taken over Judaism in America. Judaism has become a wing of the Democratic Party in America, and there isn't really any basis for this kind of leftist politicization.
If you don't talk about the things and you don't advocate for the issues you care about, if it's poverty or the elderly or healthcare or whatever, be able to realize what your goals are. During the Obama administration, I chaired the Faith-Based Council for the President, and we focused on the issue of human trafficking.
I'm going to pause for a second because, you know, I've seen this come up. I've seen the word come up quite a bit. I have. But you have done an excellent job at finding it fucking everywhere.
Hey,
Like,
yeah, this compendium is getting great.
Especially
Kamala Harris. I was like, I was not expecting her.
I wasn't either. Yeah,
I was so surprised.
Interesting.
But in reality, they're just all pawns, man.
Yes.
So
No, I'll
it
agree.
Doesn't. They're
No, that's
complete
exactly
pawns.
right. But they think they're in. They think they're in on it, when really they're still considered goy. They're still looked at as pigs. They're just going to be the top slaves of, like, that's the way the Frankists view it. Like, they're like, you guys are going to be the top pigs, or the top husk, so to speak. And we'll spare you, but everyone else, when Messiah gets here and we're deemed like the righteous ones, yeah, like everyone else can get fucked. You guys can still survive as our slaves.
And how the faith community could be engaged in that issue. JCPA saw that it was their issue, and they joined in coalition.
One more thing. It, like where the arrow is pointing, she received some Tikkun Olam award.
And helped move that issue forward, and hopefully one day we won't see that human trafficking is an issue that we do have to care about, because it will be removed.
Replace Illuminati with frankist.
Pause and backtrack just for a little bit. So the way that she was saying that, if you look at it through the lenses of frankist inversion, she was admitting that this was happening in the religious organizations. And even in the Hillary clip, the full clip, the way that she brings up human trafficking, it's a 15-minute long clip, but I shortened it just to the part where she mentions Tikkun Olam. When she starts talking, when they're talking about it, they're blatantly saying it out in the open that they are like, we're going to get back to the way we handle things because Trump is a threat to our democracy and all this other stuff. And you wonder why Trump was so pro Israel and like made sure to like look out for them, because and then he's the one that had Frankfurt infiltrated and so on and so forth. And again, I'm nonpartisan. I just observe and have a slight minor Kabbalistic student interpretation understanding. But what she's doing when she explains it is like, we knew that it was happening, and like you just have to listen to it with the right optics, and then you can hear what she's saying regarding how they like to harvest children.
Trafficking, and how the faith community could be engaged in that issue. JCPA saw that it was our issue, and they joined in coalitions and helped move that issue forward, and hopefully one day we won't see that human trafficking is
Look
an
at her
issue
body
that
language.
we do have to care about, because it will be removed.
Replace it.
It's long, drawn out explanation. She sounds
she ain't
nervous as
removing
shit.
nothing. She's talking about how they're just going to keep trying to hide it.
Exactly.
Illuminati with frankist and New World Order with Tikkun Olam. You will find the Satanic Leader's Agenda. Research Jacob Frank and Sabbatai Zevi. Kabbalah is a tool meant for good and all of God's glory. These people use it against you because they believe in salvation through transgression. Use Tikkun Olam for its good purpose. Against them, they're not Jews, they're not Christians or even Satanists, they are Frankists, so you must be careful to do everything they tell you, but do not do what they do, for they do not practice what they preach. Yeshua, Jesus Christ, Matt 23:3.
And then that's the page that talks about the Frankists that is in that same book.
Yeah,
the Psychosmos.
Psychosmos. I definitely am going to make sure I share the link to that.
Yeah, and then like the next clip is that comment that I read to you from that one website, so you don't even have to finish it. But
okay, I got you.
Yeah. And there's plenty more Tikkun Olam stuff that you can see just everyday citizens using it. You can see kids in Haiti, of all places, like using it. You can see it's everywhere, and it's completely veiled in this sense of like, it's such a good thing. Fix the world or whatever. I can't remember the exact thing, but yeah, like it's being implemented as this like good justice thing. And justice is one of the sephiros on the tree of life, but it's on the negative pillar because they just focus on the negative pillar, which is ironically would be considered the blue pillar. And then you've got the other pillar. So that one's for like water. And then you've got the other pillar, which is red for fire, but that's red and blue. Hence Republicans and Democrats, and divide and conquer. The ultimate goal is to divide and create duality and distress. So that way we're all transgressing, hating our neighbors, hating each other, fighting ourselves rather than fighting these people that's making us do it. And there's still the center column. The whole point of the Kabbalistic tree of life is the center column and balancing the two, zigzagging between the two, finding balance between the two, because you can have like a negative form of justice. You can have a negative form of severity. You can have a negative form of these things. They are pushing the negative form because all they believe is negativity. And this is absolutely like, not to get like dogmatic, but this is spelled out in the book of Revelation.
Sure. It's also sounds very familiar of these frankists sounding a lot like these same like NWO shadow figures that a lot of people are always talking about. It's almost like these guys kind of fill that void, put a name to that void. You know, we're always talking about who are these puppets that are running around on the strings, and I bet these frankists, these ones that are just going to be treated as pigs, as you were saying, like they're definitely
the same thing. They did the same thing to Hitler.
They're definitely the puppets.
They made him think that they're like, well, you're technically one of us.
Interesting.
So we need you to do this.
Yes.
And then he does it, and then no wonder that they had an escape plan for him in case the plan were to fail.
Sure. Yeah. And the escape plan was to live until till the late 80s in South America. I had an interesting follower that I was conversating with on TikTok after making a video that went ridiculous about, you know, this subject that we're talking about tonight. And they were giving me the story about how they were a part of the group that were helping demand the FIFA or whatever to get those documents from the FBI when they got released, because they originally got released like not like leaked out or anything like that, but they got released like I think back in like the late 90s, early 2000s was like the original.
You're speaking about FOIA request?
Yeah.
Freedom of Information Act request.
Yeah.
Which interestingly, journalists get it for free. If you try to make a FOIA request, they ask you for a random number. So they ask you for a donation. If you go to the page, I actually went to the page to look that up for my grandfather, and it just gives you like, hey, give a donation number. So you have to guess how much data is on your person, and then they'll maybe potentially charge you more. But you got to put at least, I think I said, a minimum $80 because they charge you per page.
Interesting.
Well, let me ask you guys something. This might kind of shit. It's still relevant with Hitler. But are you guys familiar with like the occultic interdimensional side of Nazism?
Oh yeah, like with
extraterrestrial, alien stuff.
The Bell.
Are we
yeah,
talking
and the
about
Foo Fighters,
Operation High Jump?
Yeah, and all kinds of that.
Yeah, like
all
the
good stuff.
they had all kinds of, and you know what year was Roswell? It was around that time, wasn't it?
47.
Yeah,
I believe 1947 was
yeah,
Roswell,
okay.
If I remember correctly.
I come across a
literally,
video
like,
of this claiming to be the Die Glock in action.
So it's also not, I don't see it to be too far-fetched considering all that esoteric side of World War II, that, you know, it's kind of funny how all of a sudden now it's common, like, yep, unidentified flying objects, they exist. Like, we're not saying it's aliens, but we have no clue what they are. Like, they're basically admitting to it, and there's crop circles popping up everywhere. Like, I know that those can be man-made, but I don't know. Like, I'm kind of leaning into this whole, like, Jesus may have been an alien thing.
I mean, if
like
you
some
think
sort of
about it
interdimensional being.
from
Totally
the perspective
believe
of the scientific perspective, that individual that was considered by many to be a miracle worker, to be an individual that had powers beyond any human capable like state, an individual that could sustain like hours and hours of brutal torture, which was the situation when it comes to the crucifixion, which was absolutely brutal. And that's why the Passion of the Christ was an interesting hit, in the sense that it was the first time to showcase absolutely the brutality of what was crucifixion that was done to too many people in that time period. And the other people that were crucified next to him weren't tortured. He was the only one that was tortured.
That's Kabbalistic in itself. The two people next to him. So you've got one who accepted and was forgiven, so positive, and then you've got another who was next to him who denied, negative. So one was like, fuck you, Jesus, and then the other guy was like, please forgive me, Jesus, and he's like, yeah, you're good. So, and then you've got Jesus in the center as the center column. So you've got one side of the tree of life negative, one side of the tree of life positive, and then you've got Jesus at the center. The whole thing's symbolic and Kabbalistic.
I mean, and then
it actually happened, but it needed to happen. And in my belief, I'm not pushing on anybody.
How do you see the 3 days in that relationship? Like, why 3 days?
Well, if you look into this is where I'm somewhat of a partial preterist. The word days kind of alludes to it has a different meaning than actual 72 hours, because when it comes to the spirit realm, if you will, time and space, it's just supersedes. Yeah. So the three days, but if you look at it from the preterist view, which they believe that it's all said and done, that the fall of the temple in 70 AD was the end of it, and then that was when Revelation happened, was during the fall of the second temple, which that was prophesied. He said that I will take that temple down, build another one in 3 days, and then you've got the resurrection in 3 days, and so on and so forth as well. So 3 days alludes to three spheres, basically, within or sephirotes that is in the tree. So he was helping establish the heavenly temple or the body, which is Kabbalistically known as Adam Kadmon. And then he was
that'd be cool if that were real.
What was that?
Things that did exist, and there's never no video evidence of it, and that video has popped up recently, and it's super interesting to say the least.
Looks like a thimble.
Well, that's what the die Glock looks like, though. It looks like a thimble.
Okay, I'm picking up what you're laying down now.
You were talking about the spaceships and the esoteric.
Yeah.
This is one of those things that was supposedly a real thing that Adolf and the guys had to travel through time.
Yeah, and then they had allegedly had the Foo Fighters, the orbs spheres of light that would elevate up, and that would basically shut down the power of the enemy aircraft.
Correct. So all right. So what do you guys think? I'm gonna start up there with you, Mike. What do you think the odds are that Hitler got away to Argentina?
Oh, I'm fully convinced. Like I said, I think that they needed his not glorifying intelligence, and they didn't want him gone because they needed to execute their plan that they needed.
Fair.
And then so he basically became a man behind the curtain, shaved his mustache off, and blended in with society.
Yeah, I mean, understandable. There's a lot of interesting evidence pointing that way. Luis, what do you feel? How do you feel?
I mean, they escaped for sure, but it's looking more and more that he did go to South America. Maybe this man that you showed before, or it was somebody else, because he looks like the everyday person, but plastic surgery was starting to come into fruition in that time period. So it's not in any way out of the ordinary that a person especially by the 1960s, would have plastic surgery to look more like a local. So possible, very possible.
Bandit, what you got?
You know, if we have already openly admitted that we brought over,
10,000 just in the U.S.
Yeah, if we openly admitted that we brought over, his top scientists and engineers, and if it's already out in the open that we helped fund his party in the beginning and we were involved with him since 1930, how much more do you need to believe that we helped him escape? I mean,
yep,
it's right there out in the open. You might have to do a little bit of digging, and you might have to tone down your own brainwashing a little bit. But I mean, we've done this. The U.S. is famous for funding wars and bringing about coups and funding the opposing side.
Making the sinking of a ship?
And
another ship?
Look what we did with Ukraine. I mean, look what we did with Iraq and Afghanistan, Vietnam,
Korea.
The list goes on and on. Korea.
Frankists are tied into Titanic and the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, the U.S. is famous for.
We got some shady shit going down all the time.
Dabbling in elections,
In every country on the planet. We literally dabble in every country on Earth. We are in everybody's politics.
I want everybody to know that there is no shady shit going on in our own elections here in this country. Okay?
Nothing at all.
Perfectly fair.
Yeah.
Every election is nothing but fair.
Remember, kids, we live in a democracy. I mean, did they say republic?
Yeah, we are all.
Oh, John Kerry. I just learned this last night. John Kerry. It's confirmed that his parents were Frankists. His dad, at least.
But he married into wealth, though.
As far as messing with elections and countries and stuff.
No,
they're all safe here.
I mean, just look at Myanmar. Facebook caused the civil war just in Myanmar. Who knows if that was a test? Right. Can we cause war in a country just with social media?
If people would have just trusted Freemasons, if people would have just trusted Freemasons this whole time and just allowed us to push the Freemason ideology and reject the European Eastern corruption, and just let if everyone just became a Freemason and then realized that America is just kind of we're gonna try and do the good stuff, and then it would we wouldn't be nearly as bad as this was. But everything has to happen the way that it does, because
I think a lot of people would join if they knew how potentially accessible it was. More people would join. I think there's this ethos around it.
Well, the Frankists did a great job of infiltrating in the European part, and then doing a bunch of fuck shit in the name of Freemasonry, and then that's because of those people who are fake Masons in the European countries doing a bunch of weird shit, gives the Western or American Freemasons more specifically a bad name. And it's this whole country is literally built off of the ideas of Freemasonry.
Even in its architecture.
And that's what people want to because of the Frankists pushing the narrative, who infiltrated QAnon and made QAnon into a complete psyop.
Do you think that's why they also keep naming this country a democracy instead of a republic?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's why they keep saying that Trump is the Hillary thing, the quote extended. she basically like ends it with saying how like Trump is a threat to their democracy.
To our democracy, a threat to our democracy.
But yeah, because
you
they
really look into
their
it.
plan.
Democracy just does nothing but further, like, it enriches the leaders to rule over their turfs. You know, it's just a majorial dictatorship is all it is.
Yep.
You know, and
all I'm saying is I won't be surprised at this point because truth seems to be stranger than fiction. If Jesus were to return, literally, but on a spaceship, and everyone's just like, "What the fuck?"
All right. Now, if he comes in a spaceship, what state does he land? Okay, this is a quick question. What state?
He'll be leaving. Definitely.
Come on, what state?
South Carolina.
If Jesus were an alien and would land on Earth, where would you say he would land and why?
Montana or Wyoming.
Okay, Montana, Wyoming, nature. Why?
Why?
Salt Lake City, Utah.
Beautiful
Salt Lake
and
City.
wide open. You know, land someplace where you'll want to stay and not immediately destroy us. Because if you
okay, so he wants to hide in covert and why Salt Lake City? Why do you say Salt Lake City?
Oh.
He said Salt Lake City. The Mormons, the Mormons love him because the Mormons will blow up the spaceship because they said they get a planet when they die.
There you go.
The Mormons are like, they won't kill me. They won't kill me.
If we have any Mormon,
we did our research. The Mormons won't kill us.
All right, please don't downvote us. All right. If we have
Okay, I love all my Mormon friends and stuff, and I make the same joke, so I don't want any viewers to think that I don't like Mormons or something. But what if the Mormons end up being right? Like, wouldn't that be some shit?
I mean, everybody should see that South Park episode where they tell the whole story of Mormonism.
That's one of my favorite episodes.
The best.
What if Scientologists are right?
No, exactly.
God,
what if Scientologists are right? Everybody's fucked.
You know what's going to be what if the frankists were right?
Oh God.
Oh no, I was thinking of that while you were talking. I was thinking of the exact same thing. Fuck's sakes, what if reality is actually so fucking twisted that these crazy lunatics
they're the ones that figured it out.
They're the ones that actually figured out like how dark the universe
is. Was being annihilated. I'd be like, okay.
But this is the thing is like that means the universe is that dark. The universe is way darker if you think about it.
Darkness was created first and light came out of it.
Yeah. At this point in time, it wouldn't surprise me. You know, after everything the last couple of years has shown us, I really wouldn't be surprised, man.
That what darkness actually always reigns.
Possibly shock me right now.
Well, I have an idea of especially now that the Queen's gone. I think our boy Saint Germain's going to make a public appearance at some point.
Oh snap!
Do you think he'll look the same? Okay, honest to God question. If that person is a real entity, would they look the same?
So on a more realistic understanding, the Count as it was just a master alchemist, and he stayed his age for like a very long time. But his actual spirit was just reincarnated, just kept reincarnating. So it wasn't that he physically was like, like just hanging out and around, blah, blah, blah. There's actually another guy, I can't remember his name, but he's kind of like an out and open alchemist. And he was born in like 1921.
Yeah.
And he's still alive right now. He's starting to look his age, but if you look at him like, I don't know, 5-10 years ago, which there's pictures of him, he looks like he's like 50 years old.
No, that's
wait. I thought you were talking about the guy that tells everybody how to stay young forever. That's 50 something years old. You ever heard of that guy?
I think it might be that guy.
He's a scientist. He's actually pretty well respected.
Like he has like long blonde hair.
Yes, that he's in his 50s and he looks like he's in his 30s. I mean, he takes this.
Oh wait, then we might be thinking of someone else because the guy I'm talking about, he's literally like 100 years old.
Oh, there is another one. The plastic surgeon you're talking about.
No. That's yeah, that's that's the whatchamacallit, George Guidestone's guy.
Gotcha.
Oh, that's right. You mentioned that.
So,
but I'm trying to think about which one you're
That
talking
shit
about. I'd
is
like to see
driveway
them.
gravel.
That's right. They sure did. Because
Yes, they did.
I still want to know 4,000 Quaaludes. What do you think was in that chamber?
I don't think that was real. I think that was made up.
No, but there was supposedly a time capsule. I wonder what
I
was.
believe there was
in
a time capsule, but I don't think we got to see what's in it.
We will never know what was inside that shit.
Oh my god,
ever.
it'd be fun to know.
Well,
what the hell is in it?
There's one major problem with the Philosopher's Stone. All these alchemists are, trying their best for longevity. They're like, I want to live as long as humanly possible, and that's the whole point of like operative alchemy, which is dumb in my opinion. I think spiritual alchemy is more worth the effort. But they're trying to prolong their life for whatever reason. More power to them. But the biggest issue is that the ultimate goal is they're trying to live forever or whatever. They're missing one key ingredient. That the issue is it doesn't exist on this planet. So it's like, what are you even trying for? It's the epitome of insanity. And then
or
if
it's
you
not even of this
improperly do it-
dimension.
yeah. Well, to my understanding, the missing ingredient is what basically Saint Germain, also known as Joseph of Arimathea, got his hands on, which was the blood of Jesus Christ, or Yeshua of Nazareth.
Yeah. It's wild how a lot of this stuff ties all back into all this crazy stuff. Like it's definitely different things that I've found throughout the years in different places, and then that Saint Germain guy is somebody who comes up quite frequently, like real frequently. But you guys know I'll be able to I'll make sure that you can get back to Mike here as I normally do on his TikTok, because he's always sharing awesome little tidbits like this and pushing the limits of, are they going to get him or are they not? I like to remind folks that if he goes missing, he probably didn't do it himself, because he's out there throwing out some truths that some people might find it above their head a little bit. But if you just sit there and listen and then you start checking on some of the stuff he's talking about, you can actually match it all up, just like that book that he brought up tonight. I'm gonna make sure you guys can get that in the links and stuff too. This evening's been a blast, of course. As per usual it is. Bandit Luis, you got anything you need to throw in before we close out for the evening?
I do not.
I was gonna say potentially, what if it's the new person, the new replacement is Logan Paul?
Oh my God. Oh, he
is blonde.
No. But see,
what if QAnon was right, and JFK Jr. comes down the spaceship with Jesus and Queen Princess Diana?
Michael, no. Michael, no.
This was something, Diana, right? I remember this.
And Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson comes down.
Michael Jackson too.
Princess Diana.
Michael Jackson. Well, I don't know how y'all feel about Michael Jackson.
I know that he was actually trying to save kids. It was all a bunch of made up stuff.
There you go. Michael Jackson's hanging out with Jesus.
Michael Jackson was a good person. He was a heavily abused human being, but one of the most brilliant souls in the
his whole life, and he stayed that pure and innocent his whole life. Like, talk about the trials of a champion.
Sure. But see, that's what I like about this, you guys, because wouldn't you rather just listen to us and talking about interesting things all the time instead of talking about big black clouds all the time and fear and death and the world's over, blah, blah, blah.
The world's not over. The world is going to rise up from this terrible times. Right. We're going to see good times.
Another biblical key for the any Christian viewers. The world was a lot smaller when Revelation was written. It was talking about the world of the Holy Lands. Well, judgment, therefore, and I encourage people to read up and study the idea of apocalyptic literature.
Sure.
It'll make Revelation make a lot more sense.
Yep.
On top of having an idea to follow, but that's a whole different ballgame. But
but I mean, there's nothing wrong with bringing mention to things, but like that's the point of what we're trying to do over here. Is we're not trying to just be fear porn. We're trying to bring interesting, weird facts that we've all picked up, and maybe if we can put the pieces of the puzzle together, coming from all these different angles, these different walks of life, we can get some answers and maybe make a better tomorrow, not just for me and you, but for our kids and maybe our kids' kids. Because there's no reason to think that Klaus Schwab's actually going to make you eat bugs and live in a pod. Like, that's
only if you want to.
Only if you want to. You know what I'm saying? Like there's it's conversations like this and the mission that we're on out here at Unconstitutional Awakening, the podcast, to unify people the best that we can with whatever means that it takes. Like, I do appreciate you guys and you guys hanging out. I got a double thing I was gonna you guys know I got my regular old thing to go along with, so I'm hoping this one actually works tonight. You guys laugh at me because the other nights was pretty lame. So, what do pirates call a prostitute on the pier?
Booty.
Land ho. You guys have a fantastic evening now.